Hello guys, and welcome to another video. Now yesterday I made a video all about the potential of the mercenaries we're going to have access to in Path of Exile's 3.26 expansion. Because even though the mercenaries will have their own loadouts in terms of skills, we will be able to give them other gear pieces to wear, which enables some very powerful options in terms of gaining bonuses from items without actually using them on your character. Yesterday's video was specifically about armor items, and I'll link that one below if you missed it. But in this one, I'm going to focus on weapons and jewellery items, including one- and two-handed weapons, rings, amulets, and belts. And we're beginning with an interesting one, Anathema. This unique ring makes your curse limit be equal to your maximum number of power charges. We saw several different mercenaries with curse skills in the trailer footage, and by using Anathema you'll be able to improve your merc's curse limit to 3, and you could even go further by adding maximum power charge scaling from items if you wanted to. However, 3 curses from a mercenary is incredible, and even though it's unlikely that you can add usable skills from items, I think curse on hit items should work. So if you find a mercenary that already has a good curse for your build, you can add a further 2 curses with Anathema, for example from Corrupted Glove Implicits or from Delve Rings. Kaom's Binding is an interesting defensive option for the belt slot. This makes nearby enemies convert some of their physical damage to fire, and this can get very strong in combination with the Elementalist's new Shaper of Flames notable, which makes enemies you ignite convert 40% of their physical damage to fire. As these are both damage conversion on the enemy side of the calculation, they stack additively for 65% total conversion to fire, which you can then mitigate with your fire resistance. Now, I discussed some Warcry shields you could use yesterday. In particular, Mute Wind Pennant is a great pairing with this, together with a mercenary that uses a Warcry with a buff that you'd love to have on your character all of the time. This sets Warcry cooldowns to 4 seconds, halving the default cooldown of most Warcries, and it also provides some increased buff effect too, but it also grants a bit of extra clear whenever your mercenary actually taunts enemies, which is whenever they use a Warcry but may also be on other skills they have as well, creating explosions on death for 8% of maximum life as chaos damage. Okay, let's stick with weapons for a moment. Dying Breath is a great all-rounder support option. It provides a large amount of curse effect scaling for any curses being applied to nearby enemies, and also provides you with a small damage boost. But on top of that, it will also provide some good scaling for any auras that the merc is using, and those auras have a larger radius too, so you're less likely to be out of range of them. Alright, how about a few higher budget options? Kingmaker is a 2-handed axe that's extremely popular for Anime Guardian, and this league it's going to be very sought after for mercs too, so expect it to cost a lot of currency in trade leagues. But if you can get your hands on one, you can benefit from a ridiculous amount of boosts from this weapon on your mercenary. 10 Fortification, which is 10% less damage from hits, especially useful if you're not already playing melee and have no access to Fortification. There's also 50% crit multi, Culling Strike, and 30% rarity. No wonder this one is already used a lot on AGs, it's going to be extremely popular this league. Another higher budget option is the Dark Seer, which inflicts malediction to enemies that your mercenary blinds. Malediction is a useful buff, making targets deal 10% reduced damage and take 10% increased damage. You can invest into ways to blind. For example, I discussed the blind aura prefix on Redeemer body armors yesterday. And this weapon also provides generic spell gem levels. It will be interesting to see if we can scale the level of our mercenary skills, considering some of them have the names of pre-existing skills that we have access to in the game. I'm not too confident this will work though, but it might. Okay, let's get back onto some more budget-friendly choices. The Belt of the Deceiver is a great one for cost-effective damage on attack builds, especially early on in progression, providing an intimidating aura, making enemies take increased attack damage. There's also the Shaper's Seed, another great item for very early gear progression, as you can equip it super early on, providing a big chunk of life regen and mana regen. The Ignomon is another cheap defensive amulet option, and Eclipse Solaris is there too as a defensive weapon option. Both of those provide a blinding aura, especially good for an evasion-based character. And on a fire-based build, you could utilise Dreadarc early on. It's a very cheap weapon, and you can put that on your mercenary for easy access to flammability, lowering enemy fire resistance. Okay, let's move on to some more interesting endgame options for mercenary gear. Perquil's Toe is an amulet that provides lucky damage rolls for nearby allies. This means that damage is rolled twice, choosing the more favourable outcome. So this is going to be really good on lightning damage builds, especially because they typically have a very large damage roll range. And it's incredible for strength stackers using Replica Alberon's Warpath, because those have added chaos damage per 80 strength, and it has a huge range of 1 to 80, so lucky damage has exceptional value for those as well. Now, we don't currently know how tanky mercenaries are going to be, especially regarding more endgame content, so you may want to consider giving your merc something like Eternal Damnation, especially for a merc where you don't equip them with any gear that can give them charge generation, and they don't have any charge generation of their own, so the downside won't impact them. If you're able to cap their chaos resistance with other gear pieces, this amulet can provide some incredible mitigation against elemental damage. And in that same vein, there's also the Untouched Soul, which is another really interesting amulet here. We don't have any information about how much life an average mercenary will have. Will it be something similar to an average player character, or more similar to an Animate Guardian? The Untouched Soul is an interesting option if mercenaries do end up being quite squishy, because it appears that their skills do not use up any of their gear sockets, which means you can fully benefit from every single empty socket on every piece of gear that you give them. You can scale their elemental resistances with white sockets, or life with red sockets. And if you were more concerned with keeping the merc alive, you could pair this with something like the Doppelganger Guise to take advantage of the huge life regeneration that it can provide, or perhaps a life on block shield, or even Gruthcole's Pelt if they have no spells that you're interested in, and this should make them a lot more survivable. Xoph's Heart is an amulet option for fire-based builds, as it makes nearby enemies be covered in ash, making them slower and making them take 20% increased fire damage. And speaking of covered in ash, there's also Polaric Devastation as a ring slot option, which you can place in a particular slot to obtain either covered in ash for fire builds or covered in frost for cold builds. But unlike Xoph's Heart, this does require a bit more investment and a bit more attention paid to the specific mercenary you're making use of, to ensure that you're either igniting or freezing enemies to benefit from these debuffs. Ignite is very easy to obtain through mercenary skills or items equipped on the merc, but freeze is a bit more difficult. However, we did see a cold-themed merc in the trailer that has Glacial Hammer and a merc-only skill, Earthquake of Winter, so perhaps that mercenary will be able to freeze enemies. Now, on the topic of cold ailments, you could make use of another powerful ring on your merc, Call of the Void. This one makes it so all of the mercenaries' damage can chill, and makes enemies that are chilled by the mercenary shatter when dying. So you get some corpse denial there as well, but most importantly, chilled enemies will deal less damage based on half of chill effect. So that's a really strong defensive option. Not only will enemies be slower, but they will also deal less damage. And you could pair that with Winterweave on your merc in their other ring slot, since all the damage that they take from hits will chill them. Now, yesterday I discussed the use of Gravebind to guarantee kill credit on your merc. Here's a few options you could use alongside those gloves. Berek's Respite is an interesting ring for Ignite builds, granting a proliferation type effect, applying ignites on nearby enemies based on an ignite on a slain enemy. And it also does the same for shocks on dying enemies too. Then for a good map clearing weapon setup together with Gravebind, there's the Obliteration Wand, which makes enemies you kill have a chance to explode for 25% of their maximum life as chaos damage. That's going to be really good, especially if your build is more single target focused or doesn't have great coverage. Yesterday I also discussed curse on hit modifiers, which should work with mercenaries. If that's the case, Doedre's Damning will be a very good ring for mercs to allow them to apply additional curses that you can give them through curse on hit gear like Corrupted Gloves or Delve Rings. Now, just like in yesterday's video on the incredibly diverse amount of armor options you have for your mercenary, there are just endless possibilities here for weapons and jewellery slots. So much so that once again, I'm sure I've missed a few notable ones from this video. So if you have other ideas that I've missed from this video for weapons, rings, amulets, or belts for mercenaries, or armor items, the same from yesterday's video, let me know by commenting below, and I'll try to make a pinned comment at the top there with other suggestions so that everybody is able to see it. But that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.